This guy gets completely furious at Cliff for using an example on how we see and use historical evidence for knowing something that actually happened. So let's get right into the video. But before we get into the video, my name is Elijah and I make videos about faith that engages the culture for Jesus.
You're reading the opinion of someone who copied it down in like the 13th century. And you're going to sit here and tell me it's an eyewitness and comparable to the Holocaust? There's people that were at the Holocaust. There's people who come out here who have been through it. Those people are eyewitnesses. You're talking about the opinions of someone else who wrote down what you're talking about. That's ridiculous. You can't even compare the two.
So when were the Gospels written?
The Holocaust?
When were the Gospels written?
There was live accounts of that.
When were the Gospels written?
The first was written, I'm sure, a long time ago, but the Bible you quote was recopied in like the 13th century.
That's so dumb. You can't just be like, oh, that's such a long time ago, and you can't just say it was recopied in the 13th century. And there's so many facts that we've found.
Europeans.
Really?
Is that wrong? Am I wrong?
King James.
Oh.
Like King James, yes.
Oh.
So here,
So is that what we base our New Testament on today, the King James Version? Is that your point?
That's what I thought.
Well, who told you that, or how'd you learn that?
No, okay, so answer me. So this is direct quote. You're giving me the word of God right out of Jesus' mouth.
No, I never said that. I never said that
Yes,
once.
you did.
No, I did not.
Jesus said this, Jesus said that.
I never said that the Bible's the Word of God. I said the New Testament are accurate historical documents.
How do you know what Jesus said? You keep
He
saying
does.
Because the Gospels are accurate historical
They're
documents.
not accurate. They're rewritten.
Not what I said. I said-
their own opinions and apply them to them.
I have never claimed that the Bible is the Word of God. I could never show that. So I'd never claimed that out here. Instead, what I've claimed is the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and
No,
John
you said Jesus
are
says this,
historically
Jesus says that.
reliable
Dead.
documents.
Did you hear Jesus say it? I mean, how do you know Jesus said these things?
Yeah, that's what you're quoting.
Obviously, I never heard Jesus say it,
I know Jesus exists.
but there were people who were there who heard Jesus say it, and they wrote down what they heard.
You're talking about someone who told someone else who told someone else who wrote it down, and then someone
No,
else
no,
about
no.
1,000 years
That's-
later looked at it and said, gee.
That's so not true. Luke literally was a writer of the Gospels, and he literally interviewed people who were with Jesus. It's not someone who told someone else, who told someone else, who told someone else, and who told someone else, and finally wrote it down. It would be like the same thing of a reporter interviewing someone from the Holocaust who survived, and they told the interviewer or the reporter what happened, and he wrote it down. It's the same thing.
I think he said this and wrote it down.
Okay,
How do you
good.
know? How can you take that as your life's fact and go around quoting Jesus? You don't even know if that's what he said or not.
All right, good, fine.
And then you compare it to
Let me
the
answer you.
Holocaust or something where we have literal witnesses. You can't do that. That's a historical abomination. That's ridiculous.
This
You're
guy's crazy.
comparing apples and oranges. And I know you go from place to place and you've heard all this, you've heard all these questions, everything you say you've heard 100 times and you got your patented response for it, but you have no historical basis at all for any of this crap you're dishing.
Okay, let him answer.
Yeah. Go for it. I've been waiting.
The Gospels that we have in English today
Okay.
have nothing to do with the Latin Vulgate in the 13th century.
Okay.
The Gospels that we have in English today are based on over 5,000 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript dated from the 1st century
Exactly.
through the 10th century. Greek. The New Testament was written in Greek. Remember Alexander the Great? Before Jesus was born, Alexander the Great did a good job conquering the known world. And he made the common trade language Greek. So the New Testament Gospels were written in Greek.
Exactly. That's why when people are saying, why wasn't it written in Hebrew or Aramaic? Because they wanted more and more people to know about Jesus. And the best language to write it in was Greek. Just like most people now would write something in English because that's the most common known language to reach the vast majority of the audience. We want people to know more and more about Jesus as fast as possible. They're going to write it in the language that can reach the most people as fast as possible.
We don't have this little telephone game of going from Greek to Latin to French to Spanish to English.
Yeah.
No.
It's not like that.
Today, we have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript from the 1st century through the 10th century, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree That is the basis of our English translation.
So these Greek, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are Greeks.
No.
They wrote down.
No.
So it was passed. It was passed. Your
They
literal
spoke
document.
Greek.
So
Matthew, Mark, and John were Jews.
Okay.
The common trade language was Greek.
Okay.
So most educated people who had some type of education spoke Greek as well as their local language.
Okay. So then, why didn't they write it in Greek?
They did.
They did write it in Greek.
So you were saying, really? So I'm incredible. You can read the actual writings.
Yeah, I had to go through the painful process of learning Greek in seminary. It was very painful for me, but yes, I had to learn Greek, and we would go back to the Greek manuscripts and translate them into English.
So you have original texts
Yes.
from the apostles. That's what you're telling
No.
me. So that's all I'm saying is that it's conjecture. You're studying the opinion of someone who recopied something else. If you don't have the
manuscripts
original
were
manuscript, it's
recopied.
subject to someone's opinion. And that's just plain and simple. There's no circling around that one. There's nothing like it. You know? You can't dance around. Either you have the specific things they wrote, or it's someone's opinion.
Why would it be someone's?
So you mean copying manuscripts is not legit?
No, it could be based on fact, but it also could be this guy could add, he doesn't like this part, he adds something else. You're denying that? On his honor, he's going to write it down word for word. You don't know that.
You said God gives free will. Jesus gave free will. How do you know that they couldn't have, made the manuscripts different with their own opinion, in their own free will?
You bet they could have done that. The fact that we have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree gives us an amazingly high degree of certainty that we really have what those eyewitnesses wrote. It's that simple.
Wow.
So if we all walk away from here today and tomorrow, we all write something saying you were breathing fire out your nose, and to an infinitesimal degree, we all agree on it, it must have been, huh?
And you know very, very well that there are going to be a lot of people out here who are going to clearly communicate when you wrote that Cliff was breathing fire out of his nose, you were lying through your teeth.
Anyway, and also when you look at how people wrote the New Testament and everything that they wrote down could have never been a lie, because they would write it in a totally different way to make them look good about themselves. Like what we were talking about before, how people would write only when they win battles or only when they succeed. They're not going to write down their failures. But in the Bible, in the New Testament, they talk so much about their failures and how they were cowards and how they ran away for when they should have stood up, and how Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and how the women were the ones who found Jesus, who rose from the dead. They would never write that because women during that time didn't have any credibility. But they did. They wrote that women were the ones who found Jesus. And that's how you know they're not trying to hide something. They're not trying to write something. They're not trying to just make something up, because it just doesn't make any sense to write it like that. Because to me, it seems like they wrote it the way it actually happened, the way they saw it, and they had no reason to lie. Therefore, they got killed for it. A lot of people, if they're making something up for a reason, usually it's for gain. These people made something up. If you think they made something up, they died for this lie. They all were killed. They were tortured. They were hung on a cross. They were cut in half. Some people were put in boiling water to die. Some people, their heads were cut off, all for a lie. You think they would do that for a lie? No. Not if they knew that it was a lie. They would not. That's just so hard for me to believe. It's easier for me to believe that they actually believed they saw Jesus rise from the dead. They've seen him, and therefore they're going to do anything in their power to stand up for this person that they saw rise from the dead, even if it meant that they would die. So I encourage you guys to seek Jesus today and know that he really did die and rise again so that we can be saved and have a relationship with the Father. Well, let me guys know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. I love to hear them. Please subscribe and like this video so that more people can see it. Thank you guys so much. Have an amazing day. Bye now.